Hello everyone, welcome to my channel e-learning zone. Let us today study the poem Tiger in the Zoo, class 10th NCERT, poem 3 from First Flight. Before we start, let's go for a small introduction about the poet. The poet here is Leslie Norris. He is a prize-winning Welsh poet and a short story writer. Till 1974, he worked as a college teacher and a headmaster and moved to full-time writing from there on. Today, he is considered one of the most important Welsh writers. In the poem, A Tiger in the Zoo, Leslie Norris compares the mental condition of the tiger in the wild and when the tiger is caged, that is, when the tiger is in imprisonment. Here the poet's message is that the wild animals around should stay in their natural habitat and not in a concrete cell. They should not be kept in the zoo. In the poem, A Tiger in the Zoo, the poet Leslie Norris talks about the tiger that is walking in the cage. The tiger looks very beautiful, but he is imprisoned. The objective of the poem is to make the young readers understand their responsibilities to preserve the environment and take care of the earth. Now let's read the poem once. He stalks in his vivid strips the few steps of his cage on pads of velvet quiet in his quiet rage. He should be lurking in shadow, sliding through long grass near the water hole where plump deer pass. He should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge, baring his white fangs, his claws, terrorizing the village. But he's locked in the concrete cell, his strength behind bars, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. He hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. By Leslie Norris. Now let us go through the first stanza once. He stalks in his vivid stripes the few steps of his cage on pads of velvet quiet in quiet rage. So here the poet says that the tiger moves in his cage. The tiger is moving here and there in his cage. He has colorful stripes, his orange skin and the black stripes looks very colorful. The bright stripes on his body, his fur on his body is very beautiful. But he can take only a few steps as he is in a small cage. And for a mighty animal like tiger, it is difficult to live in a cage. He has soft feet like velvet, and as he moves in the cage, there is no sound. Because he is walking very silently, he is taking quiet silent steps. The tiger in the cage is angry because he is not free. But as he cannot do anything, he is moving angrily but silently in his cage. Now let's read the second stanza. He should be lurking in shadow, sliding through long grass, near the water hole where plump deer pass. Now let us explain this. The poet here says that this is not the place the tiger should be. The natural habitat of the tiger is the forest, the jungle. If the tiger was free, the tiger would be hiding in the tall grasses somewhere near the water bodies, somewhere near the ponds or the river, or somewhere near the water body to catch its prey. A fat, plump deer, that would have come there to drink the water. The poet is filled with pity and sympathy for the tiger who is now in the cage, but would have lived a carefree life if it was in the jungle. He should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge, baring his white fangs, his claws, terrorizing the village. This is there in the third stanza. So here the poet says is that if the tiger was unable to catch its prey in the jungle, it would go to the nearby village, the villages that are in the outskirts of the forest, and would frighten the people out there with his growl. He would make sounds because of which the people would get frightened. To frighten the poor villagers, the tiger would show his sharp teeth and claws. That is, sharp teeth is the fangs and the claws of the tiger, and would move here and there freely in the village. He would be able to scare the people living in the village, because the poor people seeing the tiger out there in the village from the forest would get scared, and that is what the tigers are meant for. That is what the tigers do. But he is locked in a concrete cell, his strength behind bars, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. Now, but that is not what the tiger is doing. He is not going to the villages. He is not scaring the poor villagers there. What is he doing? Poet says that, but the poor animal is now in the cage, a place which has bars and is made up of concrete, that is cement in bricks, a very strong cell. The poet speaks of the helplessness of the mighty animal like tiger. Though the tiger is so powerful, is very powerful, full of strength, but at present he is imprisoned. He is in a cage behind the bars, where very slowly and silently he is moving up and down, here and there. He ignores the visitors, means he is avoiding them. He is not interested in who is coming to visit him, who is coming to see the tiger in the zoo. So he is avoiding them, as they have no feelings for this mighty animal caged now, who otherwise would have been moving freely in the jungle, in the forest. Now let's come to the fifth and the last stanza of the poem. He hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. Now this is the night time. At night time, he hears the sound of the vehicles, the patrolling cars, where the caretakers, the people from the zoo, come and have a routine rounds at the night to look at the animals, whether they are all okay, whether there is everything okay in the zoo or not. The patrolling vehicles are used to guard at night. The tiger cannot do anything. The tiger is helpless here. He is sad. He just sits in his cage looking at the shining stars in the sky with his bright eyes, as he can do nothing. The helpless tiger, the mighty tiger, is caged. He cannot do anything now. Now the rhyming scheme for the poem, A Tiger in the Zoo, comes to A, B, C, B for all the 5 stanzas. So if you are asked the rhyming scheme for the whole poem, it is also A, B, C, B, and if it is asked to you stanza wise, you can say it is A, B, C, B. Now let us just quickly go through the literary device that are used in the poem. The first thing is personification. Personification, the tiger. In this poem, the poet has personified the tiger throughout the poem. Poet refers to the tiger as he. Second literary device that is used here is metaphor. Metaphor is the comparison that is made between the two things which may literally not be true. Like in stanza 1, pads of velvet. Then the third one is assonance. Here it is the repetition of the vowel sound. Like in his vivid strip, I is being repeated again and again. Should around house, O is being repeated, barring his white locked concrete cell with his brilliance. Then it is the imagery that is used. Poet has created an image about the tiger here. When we are reading the poem, we can see as if the tiger is there in front of our eyes. In stanza 1, it is like stalks in vivid stripe. We can imagine that the tiger is walking there with a very beautiful cover, with a very beautiful fur. The few steps of his cage and the lurking in shadow. So here we can imagine the tiger doing so. Then it comes to oxymoron, use of words with opposite meanings. The words that have opposite meanings are used together, like in the quiet rage. Then onomatopoeia, where there's a word which represents sounds, like where we can understand that this word states a sound, like snarling. So the poet Leslie Norris in the poem A Tiger in the Zoo tells us that we humans should be sensitive to the animals around us. He here wants to say and give the message that wild animals are meant to stay in the open, are meant to stay free and not in captivity. It is cruelty to keep them caged. Let us respect the life that is present around us. Hope this will be of use to you during your studies. The PPT is present in the description box for your usage. More videos will be out soon. Happy learning!